Welcome back, viewers, to the latest researches and news. Today we have three major updates. First of all, about the quick battlefield report from the ground Sudan-Ethiopia border. Second, about the truth behind Ethiopia's Gojam operation. Ethiopian National Defense Force is not fighting Fano. It is clearing the road to stop the Tigray People Liberation Front from reaching Addis Ababa. We explain the full strategic map. And in last about Tigray People Liberation Front public mobilization reaches Sheraro, the border town on the edge of Eritrea. One message in every city: the fight to remove Abiy Ahmed has begun. Let us start with the latest quick update from Sudan. The Sudanese government has announced significant battlefield success in its ongoing military operations. More than 280 fighters from opposition groups were handed over to the Sudanese army, surrendering or being captured after recent engagements. Sudanese military operations continue actively across Kordofan, Darfur, and Blue Nile regions. We will continue tracking developments from Sudan as the situation evolves. Let's move to the military operation in Gojam, because what is being reported publicly and what is actually happening on the ground are two very different things. The Ethiopian Federal Military has been presenting its operations around Dekedimot and the Chop Mountain Range as a campaign against Fano fighters. And yes, Fano has been fighting there. Fano also claimed victory against Ethiopian National Defense Force on this front. As I informed you in previous video, that Fano claimed to capture many Ethiopian National Defense Force soldiers and also shared visuals, but so far no response from Ethiopian government about the Fano claim. Reports received that Dekedimot itself is currently under Ethiopian National Defense Force control. Kwarat as well. But here is what the federal government is not telling you. This operation is not primarily about Dekedimot, and it is not primarily about defeating Fano. This operation is strategic preparation for the war against the Tigray People Liberation Front. Think about the geography. Dekedimot sits between two critical road corridors running through Gojam. The first, Dejen to Debre Marcos to Danjila, leading toward Bahidar. The second, Dejen to Mota, also toward Bahidar. The Chop Mountain Range, a vast highland stretching across this entire area, sits directly above these roads. Whoever controls the high ground of Chop Mountain controls movement on both corridors below. And those corridors are not just regional roads. They are the routes through which any force advancing from the north, from Amhara, through Gojam, would need to travel to reach Addis Ababa. The Ethiopian National Defense Force is not clearing Fano from these mountains because Fano is the primary threat right now. The Ethiopian National Defense Force is clearing these mountains because it needs to hold this high ground before the Tigray People Liberation Front Alliance begins its advance. If Chop Mountain remains in resistance hands or becomes a route through which allied forces move south, the road to Addis Ababa becomes dangerously open. That is why this operation was launched now. That is why heavy weapons have been deployed in numbers rarely seen in Gojam. That is why the federal military has gone deep into areas it has not controlled in years. This is phase one of the federal government's war preparation. Secure the mountain, control the road, block the corridor before the bigger war starts. But here is the question the Ethiopian National Defense Force has not yet answered. Taking these positions is one thing. Holding them is another. Fano has been fighting in these mountains for 3 years. They know every approach, every hideout, every route. The Ethiopian National Defense Force has entered Fano's territory. Now it must survive inside it. Fano forces are now regrouped in Mechako Woreda, adjacent to the entire Dekedemot area. From Mechako, they can advance toward Degedimto, toward Finote Selam. The second phase of this Back to Fano's counter-offensive has not yet begun. When it does, the mountains of Gojam will deliver the real verdict on this operation. The Ethiopian National Defense Force has taken the high ground at significant cost. Now it must hold it against a force that knows this terrain better than any army ever could. The federal government calls this a victory. We call it the beginning of a test. Now to Tigray, and to a public engagement forum that carries enormous symbolic weight. Sheraro, a town sitting directly on the Tigray-Eritrea border, a town that saw devastating fighting during the 2020-2022 war, a town that was struck by Ethiopian drone strikes in recent months when TDF members were targeted near its outskirts. And it is here in this border town that the Tigray People Liberation Front chose to hold its latest public mobilization forum. The forum was addressed by Tigray People Liberation Front Central Committee member Jonas Tesfaye. He was not alone across Tigray. The Tigray People Liberation Front has deployed its executive and Central Committee members to hold simultaneous public forums in Mekelle, Adigrat, Hausen, Adwa, Atsebi, and now Sheraro. Every major city, every significant town, all at the same time. This is not normal political outreach. This is a wartime mobilization campaign, the kind of simultaneous, coordinated, region-wide public engagement that a movement launches when it is preparing its population for war. After the Sheraro Forum, Tigray's regional media issued a statement reflecting what residents said. They are ready to fight, ready to join the struggle to remove Abiy Ahmed's genocidal government from power. They said that Tigrayan identity and self-determination can only be protected by one means: the removal of the Prosperity Party regime. This is the message being delivered in every town Tigray People Liberation Front leaders visit. In Mekelle, remove the regime. In Hausen, remove the regime. In Adigrat, remove the regime. In Sheraro, on the border, remove the regime. One message, one direction, one collective resolve being built across an entire region simultaneously. And this message connects directly to what is happening in Gojam. Because the Ethiopian National Defense Force frantic push to secure Chop Mountain is the federal government's answer to exactly this mobilization. Addis Ababa knows what is being prepared in Tigray. It knows what Fetwak Gebrek said at her Mekelle press conference, that the alliance is marching toward Addis Ababa. It knows what Lema Gebra Wahids said in Shire, that there is only one option: fight and bury the regime. And its response is to rush to the mountains of Gojam and try to build a defensive wall before that march begins. The mobilization in Tigray is complete. The public forums have been held. The people have spoken in every city. What comes next is not another forum. Today's three stories tell one larger story. In Gojam, the Ethiopian National Defense Force is not fighting Fano. It is racing to secure mountain corridors before the Tigray People Liberation Front alliance advances. Phase 1 is done. Phase 2, Fano's response from Meshako, is coming. Across Tigray from Mekelle to Sheraro, the Tigray People Liberation Front has mobilized its people. The message is uniform and final. The fight to remove Abiy Ahmed's government has started. And from Sudan, the opposition is taking losses while government forces consolidate. Abiy Ahmed is preparing for the biggest military confrontation of his government's existence. So is the resistance. and the chalk mountains of Godjam may be where the first chapter of that confrontation is written. We will keep reporting every development. Like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss an update.